We are back. Ravens flock! It's time! Week 1 is here, and we get to start things off on the road in Buffalo against the Bills on Sunday Night Football. Man, what a way to open up the season. Just like last year. Last year, we lost to the Chiefs in the AFC title game, so we end up playing them in week 1, and we suffer a heartbreaking loss against the Chiefs. Isaiah Likely's toe on the line, game over. Here we are this year, coming off of a loss in the divisional round against the Buffalo Bills, and we get to take them on in Buffalo for week 1 on primetime once again. Wow, that is brutal. The NFL has, they really know how to ramp up the level of entertainment. They are really trying to rip the hearts out of Ravens fans by putting them through this level of stress right from the get-go. Anyway, let's not waste any more time. You know what we're here for. It's finally time to talk some Ravens football because there will be some action on Sunday Night Football. Here we go. Sunday Night Football. The Baltimore Ravens head up to Buffalo to take on the Buffalo Bills in a rematch of last year's divisional round matchup. We've got a battle between the 2023 MVP in Lamar Jackson and the 2024 MVP in Josh Allen. It's going to be a fantastic matchup on Sunday Night Football, and I cannot wait to see how this goes down. So let's break it down. Let's speak on the teams. Let's talk and see how things will go on Sunday night. So let's start with this. Let's compare the teams as a whole. When you look at this team in the Ravens and you look at this other team in the Buffalo Bills, you will notice that there is a clear difference in the level of talent that each team possesses. We don't have to lie to ourselves. We don't have to pretend. From a talent perspective, from a roster perspective, Baltimore has the better team. They have more talent. They've got the better roster. It's not debatable. Baltimore has a top 3 roster in the league. You look at Philadelphia, you look at Detroit, and you're probably looking at Baltimore. And some would argue that Baltimore is above Detroit, and a few may even argue that Baltimore has the best roster in the National Football League. You are free to debate that. I personally still think that's Philadelphia, but that's a different conversation for a different time. Anyway, Baltimore has one of the best rosters in the league. From a talent perspective, they're clearly superior to the Buffalo Bills. But that's what makes football so fun. Because it doesn't matter about what you have on paper. It doesn't matter about how much talent you have. Who is going to go out there and execute when the game is on the line? Who's going to make the most plays to ultimately win the game? That's what it comes down to. When we take a look at the teams offensively, quarterback situation is dead even. Lamar and Josh are part of the big 4, obviously, so they're in the same category. You look at the running back situation, Baltimore has the advantage because they have Derrick Henry, of course. It's not like Cooks is bad. Cooks is awesome. He was great last year. But compared to Derrick Henry, we know the advantage goes to the Ravens. Not to mention they have depth at the running back position. When you got a Justice Hill, when you got a Keaton Mitchell, we know what they possess. When you look at the receiving core and tight end position, Baltimore does have the edge there. Of course, the Buffalo does have talent. They just brought back Davis, so we'll see. I think he's on the practice squad right now, so they may look to work him back into that role. But, of course, you got Coleman. Of course, you got Shakir. Of course, you've got Knox as your tight end. I believe they also have Samuel as well. So they do have talent at the receiving core and the good tight end. But when you're comparing it to Mark Andrews, who still plays at a high level, when you look at D-Hop and you look at Bateman and you look at Flowers from a production standpoint, Baltimore probably still has the edge here, although I would argue it is relatively the same in terms of both receiving cores. But that's a debate for a different time. Baltimore probably gets an edge from a receiving aspect. Though we have to note this right now. There is a high chance, in fact, I'm probably saying it's virtually 100%. We'll see what happens. Isaiah Likely is not playing week 1. I didn't expect him to play week 1. Many of us did not expect him to play week 1. My timetable for him was week 3. I think he's going to be back by week 3. He'll be fine. So I didn't expect him to play in this game. I had zero expectations for that. They've got Charlie Kolar to take that role, and Kolar is great, so we know he's going to be fine. He's been having a fantastic training camp. He's been great throughout the offseason. I expect to see Kolar fit into that tight end 2 spot perfectly fine and being an impactful player. Baltimore always has talent at the tight end position, so it's always going to work out even if you do lose one of your guys. So, yeah, Baltimore's going to be fine there. But from a perspective of talent, who has the advantage for the receiving and tight end core, Baltimore has the edge there. So, offensively, for the most part, Baltimore has the edge. The only difference is offensive line. There is not a doubt in my mind. The Bills have a much better offensive line than the Ravens. Shout out to those guys. Those guys imposed their will on our front seven in the divisional round. No one speaks of this, but Buffalo rushed for nearly 150 yards against us. I think they actually rushed for more than that. I think it was 167. I have to go back and check. But Buffalo, in that playoff game, they rushed for well over 100 yards against our defense. And we're a top 5 rushing defense in the league. And they were able to run on us. And we couldn't even touch Josh Allen. Why? Because of that monster offensive line that doesn't get enough credit. Shout out to those guys. From an offensive line standpoint, it's clear the advantage goes to Buffalo. So that's not even debatable. Overall, the advantage offensively does go to the Ravens. Defensively, the advantage still goes to the Ravens. From a secondary perspective, Baltimore has Marlon Humphrey, Jair Alexander. They have Kyle Hamilton. I mean, however you look at Chidobe Awuzie at this point, post-injury, post his time in Cincinnati, you're free to look at that. Baltimore just has depth upon depth upon depth and talent throughout that secondary. Obviously, Malachi Starks, we're excited for him, but he's a rookie. I don't know what he's going to do in this first game action. There's been nothing but praise, but I got to see him do it on the field. I can't just make that assessment right now. I believe he's going to be great, but I can't make that assessment until he actually goes play an NFL game in the regular season. So we'll see what he does Sunday night. But Baltimore, from a secondary perspective, they've got loaded talent there. From a linebacking perspective, the edge is there, especially because of Roquan Smith. From a front seven position, I think it is relatively even. I really do like the front seven of Buffalo. They don't get enough credit. And they even beefed it up during the offseason. They added to that because that's an element that has been harming them when it comes to them trying to beat the Chiefs. So they continue to add to that. Of course, Von Miller is gone, so they had to add pieces there. I think it's relatively close between both front sevens. I will probably still say the edge is going to go to the Ravens because they've been more productive as a front seven than Buffalo, just from a statistical standpoint last year. And of course, them being one of the best run defenses in the football does play a role into that. Because last year, their issue was the secondary. It wasn't a front seven. But this year, they have talent all over the defense. So it's very tough to sit back and talk about how many weak spots the Ravens defense has. Which they have at least 1 or 2 weak spots. Mainly with their linebacking core and within their D-line. But that's aspects that we'll have to see in terms of the pieces they plugged into there. Trenton Simpson's going to have to showcase that he is ready to take that role from the get-go. We'll see it on Sunday night if he really has improved. But yeah, I think from a talent perspective, Baltimore has the edge. I don't think that is much of a discussion here. Even Bills fans will say Baltimore is a more talented team than their team. However, what they won't say is Baltimore is a better team at executing than we are. And they are correct. Buffalo, what has made them great and what's made them successful is how they are able to consistently execute in key situations. That helps in their favor. You see, Baltimore has all the talent in the world. But a lot of the losses Baltimore suffers are close losses. Tough, gritty, close losses. And when you go back and look at how they lost those games, you could see that execution was a problem. Now, within those tough losses, they also have boneheaded losses, like losing to the Raiders, like losing to the Browns with Jameis Winston having his first start for them of the season. They've had moments like this against inferior competition where they just don't execute in key situations. The same thing happened week 1 against Kansas City. Execution in late game situations. You get down to the goal line with the game on the line and you're just not able to connect. A couple overthrows by Lamar Jackson, a missed guy right there, missed Zay Flowers, miscommunication. Zay Flowers keeps going. Lamar sees him last second. It's a whole thing of a miscommunication, but that's part of the issue with Baltimore. Those late game situations, you cannot afford miscommunication when the game is on the line. Those small details that they consistently fail to get done Buffalo consistently gets that done. Their issue is they don't get that done against Kansas City in January. Because if they were able to get those things done against Kansas City, they would have won a Super Bowl right now. But that's their problem. Against all the other teams, Buffalo is relatively consistent in executing in key situations. Against Kansas City, for some reason, they just can't get it done. And that's where their problem is. But against everybody else, they don't have that issue. So while Baltimore has the more talented roster, Buffalo is a better team at executing in key moments and key situations. They're more consistent in doing that than Baltimore. And that plays into their favor, especially when it comes to playoff football. And we saw that happen last year in the divisional round, because one side was executing in key situations and making all the plays they needed to make, and the other side was failing to do so. They were making mistakes, and they were literally throwing the game away and making things harder. And when they have an opportunity to tie the game, another moment where you have to execute in late game situations, what happens? Mark Andrews drops the ball. That's basically your season. So while one side has all the talent in the world, the other side can execute more consistently in key situations. And that's what's going to win you the football game. So that's why this matchup is so interesting and is so chaotic. With that being said, it is the regular season. We make these jokes and we make these claims and we push these agendas. But within every agenda, within every joke is a very, very, very clear, very clear level of truth. There's a clear layer of truth when it comes to any joke or agenda when it comes to any football team. And the Ravens are no different. What do I mean by that? The Ravens being the regular season team and dominating the regular season. But when it comes to the playoffs, they're a Mighty Mouse. They just don't show up. They're not there. They're so small. They shrink in the biggest moments. That is relatively true for the Ravens, and that's been seen over the last several years when they've had teams that are good enough to go win it all, but they don't get it done. So since this is a regular season game, the assessment is there that the Ravens, especially because of the amount of overwhelming talent they have, they should be able to win this game. And me personally, when I take a look at this game, despite everything I've said, Baltimore, for some reason, doesn't have a problem with executing in the regular season for the most part, especially against tough competition. They are probably the best or second best team. Actually, honestly, if you take a look at it, they're probably the best team at blowing out tough competition. I mean, these are the guys that in 2023, they blew out the Detroit Lions, who, by the way, got to the NFC title game. They blew out San Francisco at San Francisco, the team that went on to go to the Super Bowl. They blow out these top-tier teams. The Texans have been division winners in back-to-back years. In 3 games against the Ravens, C.J. Stroud has gotten blown out. That Texas team has gotten blown out. And C.J. Stroud has yet to throw a single passing touchdown against the Ravens defense. They just seem to dominate teams over 500. And because they do that consistently, they just look like this unstoppable force that is going to win it all. But then when it comes to January, they don't execute that same way. Meanwhile, Buffalo, they're not blowing out a lot of teams like that. They're not blowing out the top tier teams. But when it comes to executing to win some of these key games, they do it more consistently, especially in the playoffs, which is why against all other competition, for the most part, because you still have that one moment where they just didn't show up against Cincinnati. But for the most part in the playoffs, they execute and it gets them where they need to get to, a matchup with Kansas City. But once they get to Kansas City, or once they're taking on the Chiefs in Buffalo, everything just seems to crumble for them. So that's the aspect they're trying to fix. So, yeah, this is a regular season matchup. Baltimore has all the talent in the world, and obviously they have a bone to pick with the team that eliminated them last year. So I think this is going to be a game that is going to heavily favor the Ravens. It's going to be a matchup that's really going to showcase the overwhelming talent that the Ravens have both offensively and defensively, and it could be a game that Baltimore ultimately wins handily, and I think that's ultimately going to be the case. The game plan for Baltimore is simple. Be who you are, run your offense. Buffalo's defense cannot slow down your offense. I'm going to tell you this right now. In that divisional round matchup last year, Baltimore had 8 offensive possessions. Technically 9, but it was 8 because that one was a kneel down before halftime. So Baltimore had 8 offensive possessions the entire game. They didn't punt the ball once. 5 of those 8 offensive possessions went for 25 points. The other 3, interception, fumble, fumble. 2 of the 3 turnovers occurred in Bills territory, meaning Buffalo's defense could not stop the Ravens offense to save their lives. But they did the one thing I said they would need to do. Just like I said with the Commanders last year against the Detroit Lions. They did the one thing they needed to do in order to keep themselves in the game and give themselves an opportunity to win. Create turnovers. Buffalo's defense is not going to be able to slow down the Ravens offense. Not consistently. It's not going to happen. That is one of the most potent offenses in the league. Having to deal with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry right next to each other is a nightmare for everybody. And Buffalo just does not have the bodies to slow them down. What they do have is the talent to be able to create turnovers, make things uncomfortable, and force the Ravens to make a mistake. And that's exactly what they did last year. If those 3 turnovers don't happen, Baltimore puts up 30 plus points and they're cruising. They are cruising to Kansas City for the AFC Championship game. But Buffalo seized the moment and seized their opportunity by making sure they forced those turnovers because they needed to take possessions away from Baltimore. Like I said, they put up 25 points with 5 possessions. They didn't punt the ball once. So Buffalo had to execute in these moments to create opportunities for their offense and to take away possessions from the Ravens. I think they're going to have to do the same thing here. They're not going to be able to slow down the Ravens offense consistently. So what do they need to do? Create turnovers. Luckily for them, they're actually one of the best teams at creating turnovers. So this works in their advantage. If they can force Lamar and that offense to make a few mistakes, they're going to take away possessions. Possessions that's going to be vital for Josh Allen and the offense to take advantage of, which they will certainly look to do because they did that in the divisional round. They're going to take advantage of that if they get the opportunity on Sunday. So yeah, I think for the Ravens, it's all about playing your game. You know what you are offensively, stick to who you are, play your game, stick to your identity. Defensively, you've got a bone to pick with this team. Go out there, flex your talent, and actually execute in these moments in slowing down and stopping Josh Allen. What you did to the Buffalo Bills in the regular season, you should be more than capable enough to do that to them again here in the regular season this year. You have the talent, you have the capability, you have the better team, you have the better roster. You can do it. That's the game plan for Baltimore. For Buffalo, it's about forcing Baltimore to make mistakes. Buffalo doesn't have any issues offensively. They were able to run the ball effectively against the Ravens. They may have found something that worked with them, and their offensive line is major. And if Josh Allen gets time, he's going to be able to be effective against the Ravens secondary. Now, interesting enough, Josh Allen hasn't really been majorly effective against the Ravens secondary. If you take a look at his numbers against the Ravens defense, it's not exactly the prettiest. I mean, he's had real struggles against that defense. However, he's been on the winning side for the most part. That's why he's 3-2 against the Ravens. Tiebreak obviously happened last year in the divisional round. And if you look at that game, when you assess Josh Allen's play in that game, on one hand, you could say it's one of his best player performances ever, but from a statistical standpoint, he didn't do anything major in the air against the Ravens secondary. He couldn't. So Baltimore's goal is to force Josh Allen to beat them through the air, which is crazy to say, but my reasoning for that is if you let Josh Allen get comfortable, you have zero shot to beat him. If the running game's working, if Cook's running on you, if Josh Allen's able to run on you whenever he wants and he's getting those rushing touchdowns, he's not putting the ball through the air. You'll have no chance to stop him. And Josh Allen doesn't fumble the ball. If you let him get comfortable and you let the Bills running game get comfortable, I promise you, Josh Allen is going to be chilling out the entire game. He's not going to take a shot down the field when he can just carve you through the ground. If Cooks is if he's just kicking the tail out of our linebackers and just cooking, if that offensive line is steamrolling our front seven, if Josh Allen's taking the ball and now he's playing some bully ball, and we can't stop that, why would he put the ball through the air? He has no reason to. Baltimore has to force that because they have the secondary that can match up with the receivers that Buffalo has and make it difficult on Josh Allen, who's going to make some plays because he's Josh freaking Allen. He'll make some incredible throws. But if you force the Bills offense to be one-dimensional and say, Josh, put up in the air for 60 minutes against that Ravens secondary, I'm telling you, the Ravens are going to win because they're going to have the advantage. Now you've put the Bills offense in an uncomfortable situation, and now you're asking Josh Allen to beat the Ravens defense by himself. That's just not fair. And that's not going to be something he can do because it's literally him trying to go up against that entire secondary that's filled with Marlon Humphrey and Jair Alexander and Kyle Hamilton. That's too much. So it really comes down, ultimately, for the Bills. Offensively, establish the run game. As long as that's going, Josh Allen will handle the rest. Give the man some help, and he'll take care of everything else. Defensively, you've got to force turnovers. You force Baltimore to turn the ball over multiple times, the results will be similar to what happened in the division round. For Baltimore, it's play your game, showcase what you have talent-wise, and go get the job done. With that being said, man, it's been a while since I have really sat back and had a real analysis of a game because we've been gone for 6 months. I'm so glad football's back in week 1's here. So with that all being said, I got the Ravens winning this game. I'm going to pick them to win 31-21. I think it's going to be a close game late, but I think Baltimore is ultimately going to go on one of those methodical drives where they just kill the clock, run the ball, utilize Derrick Henry as a whole. I don't even need to point to one thing he does. He does everything well. Just utilize Derrick Henry to just bull rush these guys, kill the clock late, put some points on the board, and ultimately, make sure this game is out of reach for Buffalo. I'm saying 31-21 because Buffalo's still going to put points up. I don't think it's going to be a 10-point affair like it was last time we faced off against them in the regular season. They're going to put points on the board. Josh Allen's too good to just be shut down like that completely. And even though we've got a lot of great pieces on that secondary, we still don't know how they're going to look as a unit come week 1. Not to mention, we don't know if Jair is going to play week 1. That is still up in the air. However, him practicing today makes me very, very happy because I think that improves his chances and opportunities to potentially play in this game. I think it improves his chances massively. I think there's a high chance he could play, but it ultimately comes down to whatever decision John Harbaugh and Zachary Orr make in terms of whether or not to play him. So it's really up to them. But if he does play, that definitely improves our chances massively to be able to handle the Bills. If not, Chidobe Awuzie will definitely just take that spot for the most part. And, we still have plenty of talent in the secondary to be able to handle this. I think it's going to be a game where Lamar's probably going to have 3 total touchdowns. Derrick Henry's going to rush for over 100 yards. He's going to have a touchdown himself. Josh Allen's going to have a couple touchdowns on the game as well. Cook's going to run relatively well. I think it's going to be very competitive, come down to the wire. But Baltimore's going to take advantage late, and they're going to open up the lead, and it's going to be a 10-point victory for them. So I got the Ravens winning 31-21. With that being said, it's time for some Ravens football. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Ravens flock, we are back, and let's see what happens on Sunday night. With that being said, that's all I've got for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys later. Be sure to stay safe, and peace out.